Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Cutler on the Let's Talk the Color broadcast, the Let's Talk the Color virtual book club, and the Let's Talk the Color YouTube platform. It is the 15th of October. It's the 15th of October already. Good grief. It's the 15th of October. The month is moving right along. I'm so glad to see you all. So glad that you all can spend this time with me. But more importantly, I'm so glad that I get to spend this time with you all. So wherever you've allowed me to come, I am so appreciative that you've invited me into that space. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to do the best I can. But I'm here to offer some inspiration, some motivation. I'm here to even challenge us to show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. I've had an amazing day, and I hope that you all have as well. And so for people who are stopping by for the first time, do me a favor, subscribe to my channel. After you subscribe, you can sign up for the notification and notifications that lets you know whenever I've gone live, whenever I've uploaded and added new content. I'm just so glad to see y'all. I'm glad that there are good people in my space, good people in my circle, good people in my village. I'm so glad that they're just good people in my life. I'm thankful that there are good people in my life because we have enough negative influences. We have enough negative impacts. We have enough negative circumstances. I'm just glad that there's some upbeat, optimistic, great people with good outlooks in my space and in my life, and you all are among those. So thank you all so very much for being a part of my life. I appreciate you more than you know. Again, it's the 15th of October. The month is moving along. The year is moving along. And I hope your lives are moving along in such a positive way. I really, really do. I hope that for each and every one of you. So let's jump into this conversation. But before I jump into the conversation, I do want to say thank you all to some of our newer members. Joel Thompson, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. I saw you last week, but thank you for being back this week. And I'm going to shout out the LTTC VIPs, those people, the first three I see who are in the conversation, like Lynn, Gardner, Marissa, and Andy Color. Thank you all so much. And I see you all, Kimberly and McDina. I see Paula. I see all of you all. So tell somebody to come on and let's talk the color, because I think I want to engage you all in a series of how to be a better fill in the blank. That's what I want to do. I want to engage in this series of how to be a better fill in the blank. And I want to start with becoming and being a better friend. But as I think about becoming and being a better friend, you all, because we are on this road, this trajectory, this path of becoming better. And again, remember, better does not start. It doesn't happen 5 years from now. Better happens as soon as you say to yourself, as soon as you believe and you accept it, that where I am now is not where I will always reside. It's not where I'm going to always stay. It's not where I'm going to always be. It's not where I'm going to always show up. But there's a space beyond where I am now. And when I get to that space beyond where I am now, I'm going to have the capacity. Can you all hear me? I want to make sure that you can hear me. Tell me, can you hear me? Let's see. Lynn says something went wrong. I can't hear you. I just want to make sure that you all can hear me. Good. Thank you, Kimberly, for letting me know that you can hear me. Great. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Marissa. Okay. So Lynn, my friend, I hope that you are able to just roll back in and just jump start and come back in. I really do. Thank you all. Thank you, Joel, Andy. Thank you all for letting me know that you can hear me. But as we are on this trajectory to becoming better, just remember that better doesn't have to start 5 years from now, but it happens as soon as you say, I don't have to stay where I am. But I would get to a point and I look back at the person that I was or where I was, and I will be pleased with the progress that I made. I will be pleased with the strides that I made. I will be pleased with the growth that I made. And when you believe that that place is available, when you believe that that place is possible, you have a better mindset already. Better does not always have to happen with what has manifested. Better has to happen with what you believe, what you conceive, what you trust, what you know. And I want us to have a better mindset. So in my mind, it is my goal to become a better tonight, a better friend. And perhaps next week when we talk, a better son, a better relative, and then maybe a better employer, a better professor, a better whatever the case may be, and fill in the blank. I want to be better in my relationships, in my acquaintances, in my interactions with people. I want to be better because that's growth. That's been a part of that, part of the dynamics of life. And one of the things I realized, you all, is sometimes that we won't become better until we realize how we are perceived and how we treat ourselves. One of the ways that we will become better is by realizing how you treat yourself and how you allow yourself to be treated. I heard somebody say today, people are telling you what they think of you. Are you listening to them? And I thought, wow, what are we allowing in terms of our interactions with people? How are we allowing people to interact with us and to talk to us and those sorts of things? And it just pricked me. It made me think, all right, because Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, trust them and believe them. And a lot of times people are telling us who they are. Not only are they telling us who they are, but they're telling us what they think of us. And a lot of times we act just as if we haven't seen it, as if we haven't heard it, and we just let it go right on by. But I want you to be careful, as you're making plans for 2025 and you're coming up with resolutions and what have you. I want you to be careful and very, very discerning and discriminating about how people talk to you. Listen to what they say and how they say it. Listen to how they invite you into communications and conversations, because it says a lot about what they think about you. Sometimes you want to know what people think about you. Listen to what they say and listen to how they say it. Listen to how they communicate with you. Do they respond quickly when you offer them an invitation for something? Because the truth of the matter is, if they have the time and the space, if they want to, they will. You have to think about that. Do they message you? Do they text you? Do they contact you? Think about how they're communicating with you. Are they communicating with you? And the source of communications, it doesn't matter, but are they silent? Is there non-communication? Maybe even if from time to time they send you an emoji. An emoji is one of those smiling faces, those little characters that you see on your laptop, on your iPad, on your phone. When they talk to you, when they interact, do they pay close attention to you? Do they mirror you in conversation? Do they give you the feedback? Do they say back to you what you said to them, so that way you know that they've been listening? I want you to think about it. How do we allow people to treat us? How do we allow people to handle us, even in our conversations, in our communications, in our interactions? Do they talk to you on a platform that makes you comfortable? I know my mom and some other generations are very comfortable with the phone and just regular conversation on the phone, more so than they are with text messages. And so you have to think about it. Do people communicate with me on the platform where they know I'm comfortable? When we're interacting, when we're in each other's space, or if we're FaceTiming, or if we're in each other's space, do they exhibit positive body language when they're talking to me? Or do they look guarded? Do they look mean and mad and upset? So you have to ask yourself, how do I allow people to treat me? What are they saying? What are they telling me about what they think of me based on how they talk to me, based on how they communicate with me? And I want you all to be very discerning about that, because people are telling you a lot about what they think of you based on how they communicate with you. Cutler, is that true? Absolutely, it's true. I want to go grab a bite to eat. Are you busy? Do you want to go? Oh, no, I'm not busy. Definitely. Yes, I'll go. Or if you make that invitation and they never want to go, or they check in on you from time to time on a regular basis, they just check in. Oh, I didn't want anything. I'm just calling to see how you're doing. Well, the truth of the matter, they did want something. They wanted to know that you are okay. And that says a lot. They pay close attention to you. You don't look like you're feeling so well today. You don't sound like you're feeling so well. That says a lot about them and their communications. One, it says that they are concerned. Two, it says that they care. Three, it says that they really are friends. As opposed to The person, when you call them, when you talk to them, they always talk about themselves, their families, their circumstances, their situations, their jobs. Or perhaps when you talk to them, they always cut you off. They're telling you what they think about you. Are you listening? They yell at you. They're dismissive. They don't contact you. You always have to contact them. You always have to initiate the contact. They're telling you what they think about you. I know I will get to how to become a better friend in just a moment, but I want us to think, what are people saying to us? What are they saying to us in terms of what they think about us based on their conversations that we just overlook, because you could be such a good person until you just overlook the negativity of others, and they sometimes mishandle you. But I want you to be careful about how people handle you. And even in terms of, you want to ask yourself, do they always need something when they contact me? Do they need my gifts, my talents, my energies, my resources? Kimberly, great question. Do you think that the younger generation speaks differently these days? There's a lot of F-bombs going on in regular conversations. Kimberly, I absolutely do think that. Thank you so much. And if you come on, interact with me, drop these questions in the conversations. I love these real-time conversations. Do you think that younger generation speaks differently these days? Yes, I do. There's a lot of F-bombs going off in regular conversations. I do. And I think somewhere that there has been a true there's a true generation gap. I think that somewhere in generations, a kind of respect was lost, because I was born in the 60s. And because I was born in the 60s, I was always my conversation was always very respectful. There were just words that we didn't use in our vocabulary. And of course, some of my colleagues, people in my age group, came along and they said, oh, there were things that I didn't get to say and I didn't get to do. And as opposed to continuing that thread of respect, they said, oh no, I didn't like the fact that I couldn't say those things. And so then they allowed their children to do it. And now their children have allowed things, and their children have allowed things. And we seem to have lost, we have picked up a culture that is no longer conscious of the kind of respect that we paid to those whose shoulders we stand on. So, certain words, certain conversations, I can't even say I didn't have them, as opposed to I didn't have them around them, but I would have had them around somebody else. There were certain conversations, certain words that were just not a part of my conversations. They just weren't. And understand when I say this, you all, I grew up knowing 4 generations ahead of me. So it was my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and then even ahead of my great grandmother, her mother. So for me, if I go back to, so that would be my mother, my grandmother Eunice, my granddaddy Allen, and my Bessie, and then above my Bessie, my Roxy, 4 generations ahead of me that I was aware of. And it's alarming and it's saddening. Paula D, I agree. There was no way that we would talk disrespectful around our parents or others. Absolutely not. We just wouldn't do it. And it troubles me that we've lost that. It troubles me that we are not bothered by that. One of the things that I can say, having taught at an HBCU, historically Black college and university, for almost 15 years, when I walked into the classroom, there was one thing that I was able to do, and I was able to demand respect. And in that setting, because I was able to demand respect, nobody was able to buck against the system. Now, the students could walk out of the classroom, they could say and do what they wanted to say or do, but within my community, within the environment that I controlled, they were wonderful children. And I said, wonderful young adults. And I said, wow, we can duplicate this. They don't mind being respectful. Is somewhere along the way we've just allowed the disrespect and we just became so comfortable in abnormality. We became comfortable in abnormality. That was abnormal for some cultures to have people who just talk like that. You couldn't even say the word darn. We couldn't. And there were just something you couldn't say shut up. There were some things that we just couldn't say. And it troubles me that we have lost that. I need to come back and have that conversation because it's so much that we could chit chat and talk about. How do we get it back? Are we so far gone that we just can't get it back? Are we so far gone that we just can't get it back? That's frightening, particularly when you are of a generation and you remember what it was like not to talk to your elders a certain kind of way. Nowadays, there are young people who they will look at you, know that you're an elder, and just keep on going, and they don't care. I'm just gonna be who I am. That's just me, and that's just the way I am. They're so untethered in their language, so uncontrolled in their word choice, and they sometimes wonder why they are challenged with the things that happen in life. But many of us, and I see it in your comments, I see the disrespect, and I was not brought up that way. I'm old school. I would not dare to do so then or now, speak disrespectful to anyone. I still say yes, ma'am. So do I. I say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, thank you, please. All of that. Yes, sir. We couldn't say lie or fool. Lynn, we couldn't either. Let's say, Joe, I always believe respect gets you further in life. Joe, I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And a lot of times we have to. It is this whole day and age of entitlement. And sometimes we like to put that in different groups. But there's this thing of entitlement. Oh, I'm entitled to say what I want to say. I get to dress how I want to dress. I get to look how I want to look. If I go on an interview and I go on an interview saying this and speaking like this and looking like this, it's not what I say. It's not how I look. It's not what I dress. That should get the job. They should look at my skills. Well, they can't get beyond how you look to get to the skills. And sometimes what I would say, I would pull some of the young people in my life aside and say, let me say this to you. The truth of the matter is that you are talented beyond what you are ever capable of realizing. But people can't see your talent because they see you. They see the facade. They see the persona. They see what you present. And so I tell the young people in my life, no, what you need to do is make sure that you're well groomed, well dressed, and well spoken. And make sure that that's a part of who you are. Don't let it be something that you turn on and turn off, because they may catch you when you've turned it off and say, oh, no, I'm not going to hire that person. So you may walk into an amazing interview, but then they hear you as you're walking down the hall and they say, nope, nope, that was a wonderful interview, but that shows me who they really are. I had the encounter with a boy at my oldest brother's house. It was one of the neighbors. It was the child of one of the neighbors, and he came over and he referred to me just plainly by my name. And I was waiting for my sister-in-law to say to him, "You can't refer to him just by his first name." So my sister-in-law looked at me and she said, "Oh, I didn't say anything because I was waiting for you." Okay, great. Thank you. Now, having said that, let me correct this young man. So I said to him, "You don't get to call me by my first name." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "Because that's not a part of my culture. That's not a part of who I am. That shows no respect. Where I come from and how I grew up, that shows a lack of respect. I'm old enough to be your grandfather. Not just your father. I'm old enough to be your grandfather, and you don't get to call me by my first name." And so that's really aligned with the same thing I was talking about earlier. What are people saying about you based on how they communicate with you and how they communicate to you? Lynn, you're right. We greeted older people, elders, with Mr. or Miss, and sometimes you just put cousin in front of it. We just didn't call them by their first name. If we did, we put a Miss or Mr. in front of it. Mr. John, how are you doing today? Miss Phoebe, how are you? They didn't mind that because in our own way, in our culture, in our settings, that Mr. or Miss said a whole lot. It said a whole lot. And the same way you also, this is a great conversation because the same way that we were careful how we spoke to people then, how people speak to us says a lot about what they think we will allow. That little boy who referred to me by my first name, and I had to stop him and say, okay, now hold on. No, you don't get to call me by my first name. And so sometimes we have to demand a certain level of respect, but we've become uncomfortable doing that. Why? And I get it, you all, because we've become uncomfortable doing it because in some settings you demand respect and you get cussed out by the children. And then their parents will back them up as if it's okay. We've lost so much to the generations of the years. I know we hear and we read and we say, oh, each generation gets weaker and wiser. I don't know about the wiser part, but I don't know about the wiser part. Sometimes I worry about that. But I think we can have a roundtable about how do we reclaim the respect that was lost? How do we get that back? We complain about it, but what do we do? How do we get it back? I didn't even intend to go there, but you all led me there. You pushed me there. I think it's a great conversation. We could even have a roundtable. How do we reclaim that which we've lost? Think about how we allow young people to talk to us, how the young people in our lives talk to other people. There were some conversations that we were just not a part of. I know we didn't like the old adage of children should be seen and not heard. I didn't necessarily like that either because I think children should be heard, but children should be groomed to know how to interrupt a conversation. One of the things that I appreciate my mother for is that she didn't put us on the side and not allow us to speak or not allow us to be heard. But one of the things she taught us was that when you enter a conversation, know how to do it. If a conversation is going on and there's something urgent that my mother needed to know, we had the privilege of telling her. If there's something that we wanted, we had the privilege of telling her. We knew how to say, Mom, excuse me, or excuse me, please. You just didn't butt into the conversation. We've lost that. We've lost the art of communication. We've lost the art of communication, but we need to reclaim it. We need to make sure we get it back. And so one of the things I want us to be careful and intentional about is listening to how people talk to us. And you have the right to say to people how you want to be handled, how you want to be addressed, how you want to be treated. You do. People don't have the privilege of just walking up to me and say, hey, Cut. No, my last name is Cutler. But we have to be careful. I want us to watch that. We need to come back and have this conversation. I wish I could just pop some of you all on and we talk about this. We need to make sure we have this. How do we get this back? Because how many of us, you all just put a yes, put a yes or no in the comments. How many of you have been discouraged, have been saddened, have been disappointed, have been sometimes upset by the way that you hear younger folk talk? And not just younger folk, but some people that you thought they should know better. Whether it's your nieces, your nephews, young people, people in your community, people at your church, or just grown folk, and you were disappointed by the way that you hear people talk to other people. Dropping the F-bomb all over the place. Kimberly saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am, don't fly today either because it identifies gender. That has always been a habit for me, and in the workplace and in schools, it's not accepted. It is certainly a challenge. It is a challenge in 2024. Lord knows it's a big challenge, as opposed to just being able to say yes, thank you, or no thank you, but just the whole nicety is the piece. But you're right, Kimberly, because in 2024, identifying gender becomes a whole other different issue here. But yes, I'm liking this. So yes, 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 and I'll be in shock. Yes, I am. I'm telling you all. And so we have to say to ourselves, how in the world can we reclaim this? How can we go back and get this right? How can we make this right? It bothers us. So let us become aware of how people talk to us, what language they use, what words they use, because they're telling us what they think of us based on the words that they use, based on their patterns of conversation. I mean, I have heard so many words now just become a part of just ordinary vernacular until it just blows my mind. I was in a church setting. I was in a church setting this past weekend, and one young man, he was paying homage. He was giving an homage, giving homage to his dad, and he was trying to explain some of the parts of his life and some of the routine things and why he appreciates his father so much. And he was telling about how there was situation in his life, and hearing his father's voice in his head and his ear reminded him of the right things he should do. And so he was telling the story about, there were times when he was on his way to get turned up and da 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 da. Da. And he said, "Oh, for the older people in here, the word turned up means." So he was very aware of his language at the time. And I thought it was beautiful that he could go on with this conversation, but he was aware that there were people in the room who didn't understand the language, and he took the time to bring them into the conversation. He said, "For those of you who are older and you don't know what the word turned up means, here's what it means." And then he kept going on and on and on. He said, because there were days when I was just out, and I know it may not have been a good thing, and I was just looking for the smoke. But he stopped and he backtracked and he said, "For those of you who are in the room, you don't understand what I mean when I said I was looking for the smoke. I'm not looking for something like marijuana, cigarettes, or a pipe or cigar, stuff that I could smoke. But I was just looking for trouble." And I thought it was so beautiful that he was able to pull everybody into the conversation. He was aware of what he was saying. I hope, as I'm talking about the fact that we need to be aware of how people talk to us, are we aware of how we talk to people? Think about your conversations. Think about the words that you use. Do the words that you use have the potential to incite riots and to incite negative feelings and emotions? I don't want us to walk on eggshells around people. On eggshells is thinking that you can't say what you need to say, but I want us to be careful. Consider, what are you saying to people about how you think of them based on your words and how you communicate with them? Do you yell at them? Yelling can be so disrespectful when that is the majority of your mode of conversation. You're always yelling at someone. That is so disrespectful. I don't care if they wear your patience out. It is the height of disrespect to continuously yell at people. Are you always cutting them off? Are you always dismissing their opinions and how they would do things and their feelings and what they want? Do you sit around them and they sit in silence because they would rather not talk? Because if they have something to say, then you may not receive it the way that they're trying to give it. What are you telling people about what you think of them based on your conversations, based on how you handle their communication? These are important things. So I thought I was going to talk about wanting to be a better friend, but I think I really, really started with how to become a better communicator. Am I paying close attention to what they have to say? Am I mirroring? Am I repeating what they have to say so they know I'm actively listening to them? I want to be a better communicator. And I think it says a lot about an individual when they're careful about the impact that their words and their actions will have on someone else. I'm always cautious of people who don't care Well, this is what I have to say, and I don't care how they feel about it. I'm very wary and very cautious of people like that. You throw caution to the wind and you don't care. So you're the kind of person who could really hurt someone and never apologize and think that you are okay, think that you're right. You could blame something on the heat of the passion, or you just cuss somebody out because that's how I felt in the moment, and that, hey, that was just me, and they understand that that's just how I am. That's interesting. So again, I may just go back and change the name of this conversation from how to become a better friend to how to become a better communicator, because that's where we went. And I so appreciate this. And you know what I do, you all? I empower all of us as we're moving forward, as life is happening, when your circle and your space and your village is growing, stand in the respect that you get from your community and don't compromise that. I need to say that, and I need to be very clear. I want to make sure that y'all understand what I'm saying. A lot of us in our respective circles and our respective places, we have been given respect and we play with it. We just let it go and we take it for granted and we compromise and we cave in. But when people invite you into a space because they respect you, stay in that place. Stay in that level where they respect you and they honor you. And then you give them what they need, give them what they look for, give them what they expect, give them what they want when they invited you into that space. There are some circles where I am. I would never compromise my reason for being there. There are some spaces and circles where I am because of my being a member of the clergy. I don't compromise those spaces. I don't go from being clergy to being common. I hope I'm helping somebody with that. When you go into a space and you are invited into the space because of the respect that people have given you, don't compromise that. There are some communications and conversations and circles where my former students invite me into because that's Professor Cutler. And I don't compromise Professor Cutler to become Pal Cutler. I stay at the level of respect where they have given me, not when I walked in demanding and walked in asking for, but I stay knowing why I've been invited to that space. And I don't compromise it. Some of us have been invited into some circles and spaces because of the level of respect that people gave us. And we became common with it. And we compromised. And we lost the respect that they gave us. And that is why in some circles we hear the F-bomb, because they invited us into a space and we didn't take advantage of the respect that they gave us, not that we demanded, they gave it to us. And when they saw that we compromised it, we lost our level of influence. So it's a lot for us to work on, a lot that we need to do. Don't compromise. I almost turned this into a message. Don't compromise where you've been called. Walk in the space where you've been called, and don't compromise what calls you into that space. Don't compromise your respect once you get there. I hope that helps somebody. I've got to go, you all. Listen, I've taken up way more of your time. I'm beyond the 1,800 seconds, but I want us to hold on to that, and we may just have to come back again and have a roundtable, because this is really near and dear to my heart. How do we get it back? How do we get that back as a people, as a culture, as a subculture? How do we get it back? Thank you all for entertaining this conversation. Thank you all for participating in the conversation. Thank you all for directing the conversation. I really appreciate that much more than you even know. I love that kind of just shooting from the hip kind of dialogue. Let's do this again, you all. And until the next time we see each other, please, let's keep doing what we do, you all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Let's stay safe, stay sane, keep your heads up, keep your hopes up, and know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. And until the next time we get a chance to talk, tell somebody else, come on and let's talk the color. The man is just trying to help save somebody's life. I'll see you when I see you. Good night, everybody.